Today, I want to talk about something that weighs heavily on my heart, something that's been echoing in the news, in our conversations, and in the very fabric of our global community. It's a crisis that's been brewing for far too long, a crisis that millions of Muslims around the world are facing right now, and it's time we confront it together. We're talking about a global crisis that we can no longer ignore. You see, when we think about global issues, we often get caught up in our own bubbles. We read headlines, we see images, and we feel a momentary twinge of empathy, but then we scroll past, moving on to the next trending topic. But what if I told you that behind those headlines are real people, mothers, fathers, children, who are crying out for help? They're not just statistics, their lives filled with hopes, dreams, and aspirations, all overshadowed by conflict, persecution, and despair. Let's start with the numbers. According to various reports, there are over 1.8 billion Muslims in the world, making Islam one of the largest religions globally. Yet, in many places, Muslims are facing unimaginable challenges, from the Rohingya in Myanmar, who have been systematically persecuted and forced to flee their homes, to the Uyghurs in China, who are enduring mass detentions and cultural erasure. The stories are harrowing. And it's not just limited to these regions. We have seen the rise of Islamophobia in the West, where Muslims are often vilified, marginalized, and treated as outsiders in their own countries. Now, let's take a moment to think about what that feels like. Imagine waking up every day in a place where you don't feel safe, where your very identity is under attack. Imagine the fear of being targeted for your beliefs, for your faith, for simply existing. It's a reality that many Muslims face daily, and while we might think, that's happening far away from me, the truth is that it's a global issue that affects us all. When one group suffers, it ripples through the entire fabric of society. The plight of Muslims is not just a humanitarian issue, it's a human rights issue. We have a moral obligation to stand up against injustice, regardless of where it occurs. But what can we do? It often feels overwhelming, doesn't it? We might think, I'm just one person. What can I possibly do to change the world? But let me tell you, every small action counts. Awareness is the first step. By educating ourselves and others about these issues, we can foster empathy and understanding. We can break down the barriers of ignorance that fuel discrimination and hatred. Social media has become a powerful tool in this fight. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and yes, even YouTube can amplify voices that are often silenced. When we share stories, when we highlight injustices, we create a ripple effect that can lead to real change. Think about the impact of the #BlackLivesMatter movement or the Me Too movement. These hashtags didn't just raise awareness, they sparked conversations that shifted societal norms and brought about change. We can do the same for the Muslim community. But it's not just about awareness, it's also about action. Support organizations that are doing the hard work on the ground. Whether it's providing aid to refugees, advocating for policy changes, or standing up against hate speech, there are countless ways to get involved. Volunteer your time, donate if you can, or simply lend your voice to the cause. Every effort, no matter how small, contributes to a larger movement for justice. Let's also talk about representation. The media plays a crucial role in shaping perceptions. Unfortunately, Muslims are often portrayed through a narrow lens, focusing on stereotypes and sensationalism. But we know that Muslims are not a monolith. They come from diverse backgrounds, cultures, and experiences. It's essential to amplify the voices of Muslims in the media, to share their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs. When people see the humanity behind the headlines, it becomes harder to dehumanize them. And here's the thing, this isn't just a Muslim issue, it's a global issue. The fight for justice, equality, and human rights transcends religious boundaries. When we stand up for one group, we stand up for all marginalized communities. We create a world where everyone, regardless of their faith, race, or background, can live without fear. It's about building bridges, not walls. Now, I know this can feel daunting. You might think, how can I make a difference? But let's break it down. Start by having conversations with your friends and family. Share what you've learned. Challenge stereotypes when you hear them. Support local Muslim businesses and organizations. Attend events that promote understanding and dialogue. Get involved in your community. It's about creating a culture of empathy and solidarity. As we navigate this complex world, let's remember that we are all interconnected. The struggles of one community are the struggles of us all. When millions of Muslims cry out for help, it's a call to action for each of us. We can no longer afford to turn a blind eye. We must listen, we must learn, and we must act. Together, we can create a world where everyone feels safe, valued, and heard. So, let's rise to the occasion. Let's be the change we want to see in the world. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about them, it's about us. It's about humanity. And that's a cause worth fighting for.